In the last lecture, we tried to save our note and we ran into a little bit of problems, right? And the problem that we ran into is if we go to any of these screens, especially for the previews, if we go to note list screen, currently it's not really displaying any notes, but you can see that this one, My Garden Vegetable, this is not really a persisted item. It's not really coming from the database. All right. So how can we fix this? I mean, because in order to add nodes to it, we need to make sure that the garden vegetable is already persisted to the database. And another thing is adding a note. So if you're adding a note, what you need to do is simply add the note to the notes collection or the array for My Garden Vegetable and save the context. That's it. And the reason is because My Garden Vegetable is already added, it's already in the context, and that's why we're just saving it, updating the context. Now, even over here, you will have the same problem because My Garden Vegetable has to be a persisted item. All right, it has to be coming from the actual database and not just creating a new item. So what will be our solutions? We'll go to the preview container and let's try out our first solution. And when we look at the preview container, obviously the reason that we created preview container is only when the data is coming from the Swift data database. So that's why we're using this. And one of the things that we can do over here in the preview container is provide some dummy data. And you will see that we end up using a different strategy, but I do want to show you what preview container is all about. And you'll see that we will replace it with preview traits in the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some dummy data. I'm going to get the vegetables. We already have the preview data.load vegetables, which is simply loading is from the JSON file. And I can just get 5 of them. I don't really want to load all of the vegetables. I mean, 5 of them will be fine. And then I can go over these vegetables, vegetable in vegetables, and then make sure that we save it. So container.mainContext.insert this particular vegetable. Now, the main context is main actor isolated. So this means that we need to make sure that we are decorating it with main actor. After this, after we have inserted our vegetable, I can run the loop again. Now, I'm sure you can do it in the previous loop also, but I just want to make it a little bit clear. Once we have inserted the vegetables, then I can go ahead and say My Garden Vegetable. So now I'm going to create My Garden Vegetable. My garden. So these are the vegetables that are actually added, into my garden. I can pass in the vegetable. Plant option, it's completely up to you. I'm just going to pass it with seed, but later we can maybe change that. Make sure that you update this to vegetables. And then again, the same thing, container.mainContext.insert. Insert the model, which is My Garden Vegetable. Okay, so this means that whenever we have the preview container, it is going to get all the vegetables, well, 5 of them at least, from the JSON file. It's going to insert those vegetables into the database, and then it's also going to insert, 5 vegetables for My Garden Vegetable. Okay. Let's see how we can use that. If I go to the My Garden screen right now, currently it is using preview container, right? And you can already start seeing that My Garden Vegetable is now populating with some dummy vegetables. I think that's pretty good. Okay, well, what about if we want to, go with the note list screen? What about that? Or add note screen. I think that was one of them that we were trying to access, right? Like the add note screen. So how can we do that? So if I go to Add Note screen, you will find out that over here, instead of using the vegetable coming from the database, we are using the vegetable that we are just creating it over here. So that's going to be a little bit of a problem, right? So let's update this. Now you might say that, well, this is a vegetable that's coming in. Now if I go ahead and try to add something to it, it might not work correctly. The other thing will be when we are on the note list screen, how are we going to display, how are we going to display the notes? Because if I simply run this just like that, and I say preview, like container, right? That's what we were using before. And I will simply pass in the preview container, the one that we implemented earlier on. It should be model container over here. So I'll say preview container. Because now I'm saying that, okay, I'm passing preview container, and over here I should be able to access the vegetable. So I can say previewable. So previewable is something new that has been added in iOS 18, I believe. And what it allows you to do is, instead of creating like a container and a presenter or a parent view which will load the data and then pass it down, what you can actually do is simply use it over here. Like if you want to run any queries, and state, all of that stuff is available over here. So I'm going to say my garden vegetables. And again, I'm going to say my garden vegetable. Okay. Query, well, we need to import SwiftData. Okay, so basically what I'm saying is that use the preview container. And since we're using the preview container, we already know that our in-memory database will have some vegetables. We already know that our in-memory database will have some my vegetables. Okay. And then we're saying, go ahead and run this query, get all the my garden vegetables, and we'll say my garden vegetables. So you have an array, and then pass the first one. And you can see that it immediately crashes. And if you look at the error is basically saying index out of range. So what exactly is going on? Well, the thing is that before the model container is actually set up, it tries this approach. It tries to call note list screen by passing in my garden vegetables with 0. And at that particular moment, there is nothing on, or the 0 doesn't even exist. So it's kind of empty. And that's the problem that we're facing, right? How do we fix this problem? And one of the ways to fix this problem is by introducing what they call it the preview traits. Okay? So I'm going to go into my preview container, and I'm just going to implement it over here, and you'll see that instead of using preview container, we end up using some sort of a sample data with preview traits. Although we can use preview container also. I mean, you can, but you will have to use it in a little bit of a different way if you want to. Right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a struct. I'll call it sample data. And this will be using the preview modifier. Now, preview modifier lives inside SwiftUI, so make sure that you import SwiftUI. Great. Next, one of the function that you need to implement is the body function. That is the requirement. And in the body function, this part, the context, has to be changed to model container. There we go. All right. Now, let's see what else it's saying. If I go ahead and say fix it, you can see that it's basically saying that, hey, you got to implement this make shared context. And make shared context is where you will create some sort of a shared context. Well, the good thing is that we already created that particular context. So if we want to, we should be able to simply return the preview container over here, and that should also work. In the body over here, we will add the context to the model container. So in the content dot model container, and then we'll simply add the context. Great. Now we also want to extend our preview trait so that we can provide the sample data as one of the options. So this is quite easy because we can simply perform an extension on the preview trait where the type is preview.viewTrait. So it's only going to be available for the view traits. And now I can go ahead and create a property, static var. I can simply say sample data, self, and then for the modifier, we're just going to use the sample data that we just created. Perfect. Let's go ahead and build it. So this means that whenever we want to get any sample data, instead of using the preview container now, we can use sample data. But there is a little bit of a different way of injecting sample data. So if we go to our node list screen, which currently doesn't really display any nodes, but if we go to that screen, what we can do is right in the preview itself, we can pass in the traits and we can get access to the sample data. We can also remove the model container because sample data is going to allow us to provide that stuff. So that's kind of really nice that we can actually do those things. All right, great. So now you can see at least the page is loading correctly. If we go to the add node screen, we have the same problem over here. This MyGardenVegetable is not really coming from the database. We just created an instance of it, so that's not good. So I'm going to use the same approach. I'm going to go ahead and say over here, the traits that we'll be using will be for sample data. And over here, we can use this new previewable thing. So previewable query, and then we will say my garden vegetables, my garden vegetable. And once we have that, we should be able to simply pass it over here, my garden vegetables of 0. And we don't really need the preview container over here. Make sure to import SwiftData too. All right. Okay. Okay, so we have all of this stuff. That's actually looking pretty good. The next step that we're going to learn later will be how we can display our notes. So that will be a good thing to do. And also, how can we select like a picture or something, right? Now, for displaying the notes, you can always go back to the note list screen. And this is where you will display your notes. Now, it's very important that you only display the notes for that particular vegetable. So instead of text, I'm going to simply say list, and we can say over here, my garden vegetable. Not sure why I'm saying different spelling, but my garden vegetable dot notes, right? We can go through the notes. But notes, I believe in this case, is nullable, so we can actually do this for now. We'll get the note, and then we can display the text. So text note dot title. All right. Great. Now, right now we don't really have any notes, and one of the things that you can always work on is, well, how can you add some default notes? I mean, that would be fun if you can just add some default notes. And we can do that because we have preview container. And in the preview container, we are inserting some default things. See that? We're inserting the vegetable, we're inserting my garden vegetable. So if we're doing all of this stuff, why not go ahead and add notes too? So I'm going to go ahead and create a property called gardening notes. I mean, we can just call it notes also. And over here in this notes, I mean, I guess we don't really have to put the property over here because it will be initialized again and again. So what we can do is outside the loop, you can create this property somewhere. So I can go probably over here. I can create this property right there. All right. Gardening notes will contain notes, just pure instance, title, and body. So now we have some hard-coded notes that we can use in our scenario. And we're just going to add some random notes. All right. So I am going to say, like for some vegetables, they will have notes, and some of them will not really have notes. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and say a random number. So go ahead and create a random number for me. So random between 0 and 1. So it's going to be 0 or 1. And if the random number is, let's say, 1, then for that particular garden vegetable, we can add notes and we can assign gardening notes. All right. Okay. Again, we can do a lot of different things over here, right? I mean, we can also go ahead when we are taking this, we can say random, or you can just say days ago equals to integer.random. Again, random in what? Well, 1 to 50. So this means planted days ago. So this is your planted days ago. All right. And then we can get MyGardenVegetable as .date planted equals to, and then we can assign some sort of a value. I'm sure there are other easier ways that you can do that, but I'm just trying to just go with the flow right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and say days ago. I know that we can use date and then we can pass days ago. I think you can do that also, providing some sort of like a random number. I guess we don't have to do all of that. We can simply say date dot, I think it was date dot days ago or something, right? Days ago and days ago. We can just pass in this. Okay, so that should also work. Okay, and then we add this particular thing to the main context. Let's go ahead and build it. Okay, let's go to the note list screen, keeping in mind that now some of the vegetables should have some notes, hopefully. Okay, there we go. So the vegetable that it is displaying, it does contain some notes. See that? So this is by using the preview traits, which is kind of like a new feature and also previewable. And it really helped us out because now we can use our preview container, and it's kind of like hidden behind the scenes with sample data is using the preview model container. So we can just add some data to it. All right, so hopefully you have enjoyed it. Thank you so much. If you like this video and want to support my channel, then the best way would be to check out azamsharp.school. Azamsharp.school is one of the largest collection of iOS development videos. I have courses on everything that you can imagine for iOS development. This includes Skip, AI for iOS developer, full stack e-commerce app development using SwiftUI Note, Postgres, SwiftUI architecture, Supabase, Firebase, Firestore, core data, full stack iOS development using Vapor. Oh, it's just so much courses, so much to learn, right? Test-driven development, MapKit, Reality Kit, machine learning, so many courses. And I also host workshops. Now these workshops are 3.5 hour long, and they are very, very hands-on. The next workshop coming up is on February 7th, but you can always look at the workshop pages and enroll for these workshops. You can enroll for these things by purchasing individual courses, or you can also become a monthly or annual member and you get access to the workshop for free. This is a pretty awesome deal. So hopefully you have enjoyed it, and thank you so much, and make sure to share the video, and I will see you as an Azam Sharp member. Thank you.